A former slot technician just revealed something about Huff and Puff that could save you hundreds or even thousands of dollars. What I'm about to show you goes against everything casinos tell you about this machine. And the truth is, they've spent millions making sure players never understand what's really happening. Walk into any casino right now and you'll see Huff and Puff positioned right near the main entrance. The bright colors catch your eye immediately. The Three Little Pigs theme looks friendly, approachable, almost childlike in its presentation. That's exactly what makes this machine so dangerous, according to documentation from former casino employees who've seen thousands of players fall into the same trap. The visual design creates a false sense of security. Players think they're sitting down at something harmless, something fun, maybe even something lucky because it reminds them of childhood stories. But here's what industry insiders say about that placement strategy. High traffic areas near entrances aren't chosen randomly. Internal training documents allegedly instruct floor managers to position machines like Huff and Puff, where players make impulsive decisions before their rational mind fully engages. Let me tell you about Sarah, an elementary school teacher who thought the machine looked cute and harmless. She sat down with $200, planning to play for maybe 30 minutes before meeting friends for dinner. The mathematical reality that former slot technicians report tells a different story than what Sarah expected. The base game RTP sits between 85 and 87%, according to insider data, meaning the machine is programmed to keep 13 to 15 cents of every dollar wagered over time. But Sarah didn't know that. She was watching the animation brick by brick, watching the little pigs build their houses on screen, and something in her brain interpreted that as progress. Here's what makes this psychologically devastating based on reports from former employees. Players think they're building towards something meaningful. The visual metaphor of construction, of creating something brick by brick, triggers the same mental reward circuits as actual accomplishment. You're not building anything except losses. The animation plays after nearly every spin. A brick appears here, a window gets added there, the house slowly takes shape on your screen, and former casino workers say this is completely intentional design. Your brain processes this as forward momentum. Documentation from industry insiders includes cases of players sitting for 6, 7, 8 hours straight, convinced they're close to completing something, close to triggering the big bonus, close to finally finishing what they started. Meanwhile, their bankroll disappears. The cruel irony isn't lost on former employees who've reported this pattern. The house metaphor, the literal building of a house on screen, happens while players lose their actual house money, their rent money, their mortgage payments. But the false progress isn't even the worst part about this machine. What I'm about to reveal about the bonus round will shock you. The signature Huff and Puff bonus feature is where everything changes, according to former slot technicians who've worked on these machines for years. Here's how it appears to work on the surface. You collect moon symbols scattered across the reels, and once you gather enough, the big bad wolf appears on screen to huff and puff and trigger the bonus round. Sounds simple enough. Sounds fair enough. But internal reports from industry insiders suggest the trigger frequency sits around once every 180 to 220 spins. And that number tells a very different story than what players experience in the moment. You're led to believe the bonus triggers more often because of something former employees call the near-miss programming. Two moon symbols appear constantly, spin after spin after spin. You see those two moons and your brain immediately calculates that you're close, that you're one symbol away, that the next spin could be the one. According to former slot technicians, this pattern is completely intentional, programmed into the game's architecture to create exactly that psychological response. Let me tell you what happened to Frank, a 52-year-old construction worker from Nevada. He was playing Huff and Puff on a Friday evening when he saw the bonus trigger on the machine directly next to him. Bells rang, animations played. The player next to him won about $400. Frank decided right then to chase that same bonus on his own machine. Documentation from former casino workers includes this exact case. 6 hours, $3,200 lost, and the bonus finally triggered twice during that entire session. The first bonus came after Frank had invested approximately $1,800. His win from that bonus? $87. The machine celebrated with flashing lights and triumphant music, but Frank was down over $1,700 at that point. He kept playing, convinced the next bonus would be bigger, would make up for the first disappointment. The second bonus triggered after another $1,400 disappeared from his wallet. This time, $143. Total loss for the evening? $2,970. Here's what makes this particularly devastating, according to reports from industry insiders. When the bonus finally does trigger, most wins cluster between 15 and 40 times your bet amount. Sounds significant until you realize that players have typically spent 150 to 200 times their bet amount just reaching that trigger point. Former employees report seeing this pattern every single shift they worked. Players think they won because the machine tells them they won, because the sounds and lights celebrate their victory, because the screen displays a number that looks impressive in isolation. Reality paints a different picture. You're still deeply negative. You're still hundreds or possibly thousands of dollars behind where you started. The psychological victory, that dopamine hit from bells and animations and digital confetti, masks the mathematical devastation. Technical documentation from former slot technicians reveals the bonus win frequency distribution, and the data shows most wins concentrate at the absolute lowest end of the possible range. But if you think the bonus deception is bad, wait until you hear about the volatility trap that 98% of players never see coming. Huff and Puff carries a classification that former employees say most players never understand until it's too late. High volatility. Those two words appear nowhere on the machine itself, nowhere in the promotional materials, nowhere in the cheerful animated graphics showing three little pigs building houses. But according to industry insiders, those two words explain why this particular machine destroys bankrolls faster than almost any other game on the floor. High volatility means long losing streaks punctuated by occasional larger wins. And here's what former slot technicians say about how casinos exploit this mathematical reality. The occasional win keeps players planted in their seats during those brutal losing stretches. Your brain interprets each small win as evidence that the machine is working, that the system is fair, that your luck is about to turn. Players start thinking they're due for a hit, that the machine owes them something, that past losses somehow increase the probability of future wins. Former employees report hearing these exact phrases hundreds of times. Reality operates on completely different principles. Each spin is independent. The random number generator doesn't remember your previous losses, doesn't care how much you've invested, doesn't adjust probabilities based on how long you've been sitting there. The denomination options present another layer of deception that former casino workers say traps players constantly. Huff and Puff offers multiple betting levels: 1 cent, 2 cents, 5 cents, 25 cents, 50 cents, $1. The screen makes switching between these options effortless, almost encouraging experimentation. But here's the hidden truth that internal data from former employees reveals. The return to player percentage varies significantly depending on which denomination you select. According to documentation from industry insiders, the penny version operates around 85 to 86% RTP. Nickel version climbs to 86 to 87%. Quarter version reaches 87 to 88%. Dollar version tops out somewhere between 88 and 90%. Casinos don't advertise this information. Former slot technicians say this variance is intentional, designed to create confusion and encourage players to keep adjusting their bets, searching for better odds. Linda discovered this trap the expensive way. 63 years old, retired nurse, she walked into the casino with exactly $500 designated as her entertainment budget for the month. She started on the penny denomination, watching her balance decrease slowly but steadily. Then she witnessed another player at the dollar denomination hit a $1,200 bonus, and everything changed in Linda's mind. She switched her machine to dollar denomination immediately, convinced that betting bigger would produce wins like the one she'd just witnessed. $500 vanished in 38 minutes. Former employees say they observe this exact pattern multiple times during every shift. The visibility bias in action. Big wins announce themselves with noise and light and spectacle. Thousands of small losses happen silently, invisibly without fanfare or attention. But here's where the deception gets even more calculated, according to technical reports from former slot technicians. The bet configuration system on Huff and Puff includes something most players never examine carefully. Line bets? The machine defaults to maximum lines, typically 50 lines activated simultaneously. Players glance at the screen, see 50 cents displayed, and assume they're wagering 50 cents per spin. The mathematics tell a different story. 50 cents multiplied by 50 lines equals $25 actual cost per spin. Documentation from former casino workers includes cases of players not realizing their true bet amount until their entire bankroll disappeared in minutes instead of hours. Now here's where it gets even more sinister. And what I'm about to show you is documented in technical reports that former employees say casinos never wanted public. The game is actually programmed to create false pattern recognition, and the psychological manipulation goes deeper than almost anyone realizes. Before I reveal the most deceptive part of this machine, I'd really appreciate it if you'd subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments if you've ever felt like Huff and Puff was almost ready to bonus. Your experience might help other players avoid losing money, and what I'm about to share next exposes manipulation that former employees say operates at the deepest psychological level. The moon symbol distribution creates what industry insiders call perceived patterns. And according to technical documentation from former slot technicians, certain real positions display moon symbols with noticeably higher frequency than others. Players don't consciously count these appearances, but your subconscious brain tracks them automatically. You start noticing that reel 3 shows moons more often, or that specific positions seem to land moon symbols in clusters. The illusion forms gradually in your mind. The machine is warming up. The bonus is getting ready. You're close to triggering something big. Reality operates on completely different mechanical principles, according to reports from former employees. The random number generator determines every single spin independently, with no connection to previous results, no memory of symbol positions, no awareness of how long you've been playing. But here's what makes this particularly insidious based on internal reports. Human brains evolved for pattern recognition. Your ancestors survived because they could identify patterns in animal behavior, weather changes, seasonal cycles. Casinos exploit this evolutionary trait ruthlessly, and former slot technicians say the programming intentionally creates false pattern opportunities that your brain cannot help but notice and interpret as meaningful. Michael fell into this trap despite being a 45-year-old accountant, someone professionally trained to work with numbers and probability. He started tracking moon symbol appearances in a small notebook he kept beside the machine, convinced his analytical skills would identify the pattern that preceded bonus triggers. He spent $2,800 testing his pattern theory over the course of 3 separate casino visits. The pattern failed completely. The bonus triggered randomly, with no correlation to the symbol positions he'd been tracking so carefully. Former slot technicians say they've witnessed hundreds of players doing this exact same thing. And here's the cruel irony that industry insiders report. Intelligent people actually fall harder for pattern recognition traps because they trust their analytical abilities, because they believe their observations carry predictive value, because their professional success has trained them to find patterns in data. The celebration programming adds another layer of psychological manipulation that former employees say creates what they internally called the happy loser effect. When you win anything, even at minimal amounts, the machine generates disproportionate celebration. Sound effects cascade from the speakers, animations explode across the screen, lights flash in rapid sequences. A 25 times multiplier win receives the same sensory treatment as wins 10 times larger. According to reports from industry insiders, this triggers dopamine release in your brain, identical to the neurological response produced by genuinely significant victories. Players associate the machine with winning even when their net position shows devastating losses. Former casino employees report watching people walk away smiling after losing hundreds of dollars. Their memories dominated by celebration moments rather than mathematical reality. Huff and Puff also celebrates wins that don't even cover your original bet amount, something technical documentation calls losses disguised as wins. You wager $25, win $18, and the machine erupts in triumphant audio and visual celebration. According to industry insiders, these losses disguised as wins trigger the same psychological response as actual profits, and your brain struggles to maintain accurate accounting when sensory input contradicts mathematical truth. And if you think that's manipulative, wait until you hear about the time-based programming that former slot technicians say represents the darkest element of modern machine design. Former employees reveal something shocking about modern slot machines that most players never consider until thousands of dollars have already disappeared. Newer versions of Huff and Puff allegedly track your session length, and according to multiple former technicians who've reported this independently, the longer you remain seated at the machine, the more teaser features begin appearing on screen. Manufacturers have never confirmed this capability publicly, but the consistency of reports from industry insiders suggests something systematic happening behind the digital interface. Here's how former slot technicians say the progression typically unfolds. During your first 30 minutes, the near-miss rate operates at what they call normal baseline frequency. Two moon symbols appear occasionally, enough to maintain interest but not enough to feel suspicious. Between 30 and 60 minutes, those two moon appearances increase noticeably. You start seeing them every 15 or 20 spins instead of every 40 or 50. After 60 minutes of continuous play, the almost bonus scenarios intensify even further. And according to documentation from former employees, this creates a devastating psychological trap. You think to yourself that you've invested this much time already, sat here for over an hour, surely the bonus must be coming soon. The machine allegedly knows you're deeply invested and adjusts the teaser frequency to exploit that exact mental state. This connects directly to what behavioral economists call the sunk cost fallacy, and Huff and Puff exploits this cognitive bias more effectively than almost any other machine design according to reports from industry insiders. The more time and money you invest, the harder walking away becomes, even when rational analysis clearly indicates that continuing will only deepen your losses. Documentation from former casino workers includes heartbreaking cases that illustrate how powerfully this psychological mechanism operates. Jennifer was 58 years old when she received a $12,000 life insurance payout after her mother passed away. She'd planned to use that money for badly needed home repairs, structural work on her foundation that couldn't wait much longer. She told herself she'd just play for 1 hour on Huff and Puff, maybe turn $200 into $400 to give herself a slightly larger repair budget. That hour stretched into 3 hours. 3 hours became an all-day session. She kept telling herself the bonus was due, that she'd already invested so much that walking away now would waste everything she'd already spent. $8,400 disappeared in that single session. Former employees who witnessed situations like this say they felt genuine guilt watching it unfold but couldn't intervene, weren't permitted to suggest that players stop or leave or reconsider their decisions. The autoplay feature represents another trap that technical reports suggest dramatically accelerates losses. Huff and Puff offers automated spinning, and while this appears convenient on the surface, former slot technicians say the psychological impact is genuinely dangerous. Removing the physical action of pressing the button for each spin eliminates conscious decision-making from the process. Money drains from your account faster than your awareness can track because you're not actively participating in each individual bet. According to internal reports from industry insiders, players using autospin lose 30 to 40% more on average compared to those manually triggering each spin. Former technicians called this feature the bankruptcy button among themselves because the dissociation effect it creates, that mental distance between your choices and your losses, produces devastating results with remarkable consistency. But here's the dark secret that former employees say casinos will never publicly admit. The entire game design revolves around player confusion. Complex bonus rules, multiple overlapping features, various configuration options, everything engineered to keep you uncertain about what's actually happening mathematically. Confusion equals longer play sessions equals more money extracted from your wallet. And internal training documents allegedly teach floor staff to explain features in ways that encourage continued play rather than genuine understanding. Now, here's what you need to know to protect yourself, and what I'm about to share could save you thousands of dollars the next time you walk into a casino. Calculate the actual loss rate before you touch a single button on any slot machine. And here's the mathematical reality that former employees say casinos never explain clearly. If the return to player percentage sits at 86%, you should expect to lose $14 for every $100 wagered over time. Former slot technicians suggest running this simple calculation before every single session, and the formula works like this. Multiply your intended bet amount by the number of spins you expect to play, then multiply that total by the house edge percentage. A $1 bet multiplied by 500 spins multiplied by 14% equals $70 as your expected minimum loss. That's just the baseline expectation. And this calculation doesn't even account for volatility swings that could push your actual losses far higher in any individual session. Set a strict time limit before you sit down. And according to gambling counselors who've interviewed former casino workers extensively, 30 minutes represents the maximum duration where you maintain reasonable psychological control. After 30 minutes, the manipulation effects intensify dramatically. Use a phone alarm that requires deliberate action to dismiss, something that forces you to acknowledge the time passing. Former employees say players who disciplined themselves to leave after 30 minutes saved thousands of dollars compared to those who stayed for hours. And the sunk cost fallacy becomes nearly impossible to overcome once you cross the 1 hour threshold. Your rational mind loses the battle against the psychological investment you've already made. Never set win goals, only loss limits. And here's why industry insiders say this distinction matters critically. Win goals encourage chasing behavior. You tell yourself you need to win back a specific amount, and that target becomes an obsession that overrides mathematical reality. Loss limits are the only protection mechanism that actually works according to documentation from former employees. Decide your acceptable loss amount before playing a single spin, then leave immediately when you hit that number, regardless of circumstances, regardless of how close the bonus feels, regardless of pattern recognition telling you the next spin will be different. Former technicians report watching players ahead by hundreds of dollars lose everything chasing arbitrary win targets. The machine doesn't owe you anything based on previous results. Always verify your total bet amount before spinning, and check the configuration screen to see line count multiplied by line bet. Former employees report cases of players accidentally wagering $50 to $100 per spin because they didn't understand the line multiplication system. Screenshot your intended bet amount or write it down physically, then compare that number after every 10 spins to ensure no configuration changes occurred. Some machines allegedly reset to maximum bet settings after bonus rounds trigger, and that automatic change can devastate your bankroll before you notice what happened. Here's what former casino employees want every player to understand above everything else. Huff and Puff isn't designed for you to win. Every feature, every sound effect, every animation exists for one purpose only: keeping you playing longer. The 98% in this video's title represents the estimated percentage of players who never understand the true cost of sitting at this machine. Documentation suggests the average player loses 3 to 5 times more than they originally intended on this specific game, not because they are unlucky, but because the design exploits psychological vulnerabilities that evolution hardwired into human neurology. One former employee quit his job after watching an elderly woman lose her rent money on Huff and Puff, and he said watching her celebrate small wins while losing everything made him feel complicit in something he could no longer justify morally. If this video saved you money, share it with someone who plays slots regularly. Comment below about your own Huff and Puff experiences, and subscribe for more insider information casinos don't want you knowing. Next video reveals machines that former employees say are even worse than this one.